You ever walk through a place that used to be full of life and laughter, and now it's just silent? The rides are frozen, the paint is peeling, the only thing moving is the wind through the rusted ticket booths. That was my job for a summer. Night security at a place called Whispering Pines Amusement Park. It closed down in 1987. After a tragic accident on the Ferris wheel, and nobody ever came back to tear it down. My job was to walk the Midway, check the fences, and make sure no kids broke in to spray paint the Funhouse. They gave me a flashlight, a keyring, and a list of rules. Don't go near the Carousel after midnight. Don't look into the mirrors in the Funhouse. And if the Ferris wheel starts moving on its own, don't look up. Just walk back to the gate and don't turn around. I followed the rules, mostly, but the thing about abandoned parks is that the laughter doesn't really leave. It just waits for someone to hear it. For someone to see the child still sitting on the painted horse. For someone to look into the mirror and see the face that never left. Tonight, here on True Terror Files Official, we're walking through the rusted gates of 3 different abandoned amusement parks. We're listening to the creak of the rides and the whisper of the wind through the cotton candy stands. And we're hearing 3 true accounts from night guards who took the job for a paycheck and left with stories that still spin in their heads like a broken carousel. Turn down the lights. Listen close. Whatever you do, don't look at the top of the Ferris wheel. I'm your host. Let's walk the Midway. This first account comes from a man named Gerald, a retired factory worker who took a night watchman job at the old Maple Grove Amusement Park in rural Pennsylvania. The park had been a local favorite in the 1970s, but a fire in the main pavilion in '82 had shut it down for good. The rides were left to rust, including a beautiful, hand-painted carousel from the 1920s with intricately carved horses and a Wurlitzer organ that hadn't played a note in decades. Gerald's job was simple. Sit in the old manager's office, watch a few security monitors, and walk the perimeter twice a night. The carousel was in the center of the park, and Gerald would pass it every round. The horses were frozen mid-gallop, their painted eyes staring blankly into the dark. On his first night, the park owner, a tired old man named Mr. Calder, gave him a specific warning. The carousel organ doesn't work. No power to it. But if you hear music coming from that direction after midnight, do not go look. Just keep walking. And if you see a little girl sitting on one of the horses, do not speak to her. Just walk away. Gerald nodded, assuming it was just an old man's ghost story. For the first few weeks, the job was quiet. The carousel sat silent. Then, one humid August night around 1:30 a.m., Gerald was walking the Midway when he heard it. Faint, tinny, but unmistakable. Carousel music. Waltz coming from the direction of the ride. He stopped. The music continued, slightly warped, like an old record player running too slow. He walked toward it. As he rounded the corner of the arcade building, he saw the carousel. It was moving, slowly, the horses rising and falling in their gentle rhythm, sitting on one of the horses. A white stallion with a golden mane was a little girl. She was maybe 6 or 7, wearing a faded pink dress, her hair in pigtails. She was facing away from him, holding the brass pole. Gerald's blood ran cold. He remembered the rule. Do not speak to her. He turned to walk away, but then the music stopped, and a small voice said, "Mister, can you help me get off? I can't reach the ground. My daddy said he'd come back, but he never did." Gerald froze. He turned back. The girl was now facing him. Her face was pale, her eyes dark and hollow. Her dress wasn't pink, it was white, the color of an old-fashioned burial gown. Gerald stumbled backward, dripping over a crack in the asphalt. When he looked up, the carousel was still. The horse was empty. But on the ground next to it, there was a single, wilted flower carnation, like the kind you'd win at a ring toss. He didn't finish his rounds. He ran back to the office and locked the door. The next morning, he asked Mr. Calder about the girl. The old man sighed and pulled out a yellowed newspaper clipping from a drawer. It was dated 1978. The headline read, "Child dies after fall from carousel at Maple Grove." The article explained that a little girl named Lily had been riding the carousel with her father. He stepped away to buy cotton candy, and she tried to climb off by herself. Her dress caught on the stirrup, and she fell, hitting her head. She died before the ambulance arrived. Father never forgave himself, Calder said. He came back every year on the anniversary of her death, leaving a carnation at the carousel. He died 10 years ago, but Lily, she's still waiting for him to come back and lift her down. Gerald finished out the summer, but he never walked past the carousel again without leaving a small piece of candy on the platform. And some nights when the wind was just right, he'd hear a faint tinny waltz. And he'd whisper, "Your daddy loves you, Lily. He'll be here soon," and the music would stop. Our second story comes from a woman named Renee, a former security guard who took a night job at the abandoned Ocean Pier Fun Park on the Jersey Shore. The park had been ravaged by Hurricane Sandy and never rebuilt. The rides were twisted metal, but the old Funhouse, a classic walk-through attraction with tilted floors and distorted mirrors, was surprisingly intact. Renee's job was to keep an eye on the property, mostly to prevent scrappers from stealing copper. The Funhouse was a landmark, and the owner had one firm rule: do not go inside the Funhouse after dark. Especially do not look into the long mirror in the Hall of Reflections. It's cracked and it's dangerous. Just stay out. Renee, a curious person by nature, lasted about 2 weeks before she broke the rule. One night around 2 a.m., she pushed open the creaky door and stepped into the Funhouse. Her flashlight beam cut through the dusty darkness, illuminating the tilted floors and the faded, peeling murals of clowns and fairy tale characters. The air smelled of mildew and old popcorn. She walked deeper, past the barrel roll and the sliding stairs, until she reached the Hall of Reflections, a long, narrow corridor lined with mirrors on both sides. Some were warped to make you look tall and thin, others short and fat. But at the end of the hall was a single, tall, flat mirror in an ornate gold frame. It was cracked down the center. Renee approached it, her flashlight beam reflecting back at her. She looked at her own tired face in the glass, and then she noticed something behind her reflection. A figure, a man, standing in the corridor just behind her. He was wearing an old-fashioned Carnival Barker's uniform striped jacket, bow tie, straw hat. His face was pale with dark, sunken eyes, and he was smiling, a wide, unnerving Carnival Barker smile. Renee spun around. The corridor was empty. She looked back at the mirror. The man was still there, and now he was closer. His smile widened. He spoke. His voice was a low, echoey whisper like it was coming from inside the glass. The show's about to begin. The mirror shows what you want to see, but it also shows what wants to see you. He raised a hand and pressed it against the inside of the glass. Renee stumbled backward, her shoulder hitting the opposite mirror. She scrambled out of the funhouse, not looking back. The next morning, she researched the park's history. In 1962, a Carnival Barker named Edgar Finch had worked the funhouse. He was known for his charm and his slightly off-putting smile. One night after closing, he was found dead inside the Hall of Reflections. He had apparently fallen into the large mirror, shattering it and cutting himself fatally on the glass. The mirror was replaced, but it cracked again within a week. And ever since, people claimed to see Edgar's reflection in it, still trying to lure customers inside. Renee quit a week later. She told me that sometimes when she looks in a mirror at night, she checks the reflection behind her, just in case Edgar is standing there smiling, waiting to invite her to a show that never ends. Our final story takes us to the Silver Lake Playland in upstate New York. It's a small family park that closed in the 1990s after a tragic accident on the Ferris wheel. The story comes from a man named Howard, night watchman, who was hired to guard the property after the parks. Owner passed away and the land was tied up in legal battles. The Ferris wheel was the park's centerpiece, a towering structure of rusted steel that loomed over the trees. Howard was told on his first day that the wheel was locked in place with a heavy chain and padlock. The motor had been removed. It couldn't possibly move, but the property manager said, "If you ever see it turning, do not approach, and do not shine your light on the top car. Just go back to the office and wait until morning. There's nothing you can do for him." Howard didn't ask who him was. He didn't want to know. For months, the Ferris wheel sat still. Then, on a foggy October night around 3 a.m., Howard was walking the Midway when he heard a sound. A deep, groaning creak. Like metal under stress, he looked toward the Ferris wheel. It was moving. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the massive wheel was turning. The chain that should have locked it was dangling loose, the padlock missing. Howard's flashlight beam swept up the structure. The cars were all empty, except for one, the top car. He could see a silhouette, a person, sitting in the seat facing out over the dark park. Howard's first instinct was to call out, but he remembered the warning. He lowered his flashlight and started walking back to the office. As he walked, he heard a voice. Faint, distant, but clear. It was a young man's voice, calling down from the top of the wheel. Hey down there, can you get me down? It's stuck. I've been up here so long. Please, just get me down." Howard kept walking. The voice grew more desperate. "Please, I won't jump. I just want to get down. I've been here since the accident. I can't remember. Please, don't leave me up here." Howard reached the office and locked the door. He didn't look out the window. He sat there, shaking until dawn. The next morning, the Ferris wheel was still. The chain was back in place. The padlock was back. He researched the park's accident. In 1994, a teenager named Tommy had snuck into the park after hours with his girlfriend. They climbed the Ferris wheel on a dare. Tommy was in the top car when the rusty mechanism slipped and the car lurched, throwing him forward. He grabbed the safety bar, but he was hanging over the edge, screaming for help. His girlfriend ran to get someone, but by the time she returned, Tommy had lost his grip. He fell to his death. His body was found on the Midway. Ever since, on foggy nights, the Ferris wheel sometimes turns on its own. And Tommy is still up there in the top car, waiting for someone to help him down. Howard finished his contract, but he never looked at a Ferris wheel the same way again. He told me that sometimes when he drives past a carnival at night, he checks the top car, just in case someone is still sitting there, still waiting. 3 parks, 3 guards. 3 encounters with the guests who never went home. Herald at Maple Grove. who heard a carousel play for a little girl still waiting for her father. Renee at Ocean Pier, who saw a carnival barker in a cracked mirror, still trying to lure customers into his funhouse. And Howard at Silver Lake, who heard a young man calling from the top of a Ferris wheel, still trapped in the seat where he fell to his death. Abandoned amusement parks are strange liminal places. They were built for joy and laughter, and when that joy is ripped away, something lingers. An echo, a memory, soul that doesn't know the park is closed. And the night guards, the lonely keepers of these rusted kingdoms, are the ones who sometimes stumble into their world. They're the ones who learn the rules. They're the ones who carry these stories with them long after the gates are locked. These stories gave you chills. You're in the right place. This is True Terror Files Official. We bring you the darkest, most unexplainable true encounters every single week. Do me a favor. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already, and ring the bell so you never miss an episode. Now, tell us in the comments, which of these 3 abandoned park encounters would haunt you the most? And have you ever visited a place that felt like the laughter never really left? Share your story. We read every single one, and the best may be featured in a future episode. Until next time, keep the gates locked. And if you hear carousel music in the dark, just keep walking. Some rides are meant to stay empty, and some passengers are still waiting for someone to help them off.